When the moon is traveling through Aries, it represents a time, because you have 2.5 days to harness the moon power of Aries energy. So when the moon is in Aries, this is a time when everybody feels confident to make a new start, a fresh start in a new direction. Okay, everybody's in the mood for Aries energy because the moon affects our moods. The moon affects our overall nature. It is like the power of Mother Nature operating through us. The same way the moon creates tidal waves in the waters that eventually create clouds and then eventually creates rain. The sun, the moon, Mercury are all responsible for the weather. Okay, meteorologists are actually astrologers who actually study the movements of the planets so they know exactly how the earth is going to be affected and its weather. Okay, so we are affected as well, and that's what astrology is. It is a forecast of our energy and our cycles and our moods and our nature. Okay, so astrology is a science that is very important for us to understand. Okay, so when the moon is in Aries, everybody's in the mood to start something. Everybody's in, because Mars is the god. That is the planet that rules Aries energy. And Mars is the warrior. Okay, Mars, Aries represents birth, the birth of something. Okay, it's time to make that change, start new. Okay, Aries represents the first house, which represents the image, the man in the mirror. Okay, like Michael Jackson said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Okay, seasons start with the man in the mirror. That is the original new year, Aries season. The start of Aries season is the new year on the earth. Okay, so that is our energy that's fresh. It's new. It's time to begin something. And not only that, people jump headfirst in what it is that they want to start. Okay, and then they think later. But we're going to get to that moon cycle because that moon cycle is Gemini. But right now, when the moon is in Aries, we're so busy going headstrong into what it is we want to start. Okay, Aries moon, people are feeling confident. Okay, there may be some confrontations going on. There may be a lot of competition going on during that moon. Aries moon is a very aggressive moon. You might see a lot of aggressive drivers on the road, especially if they have their Mars in Gemini or their Mars is in the third house, because Gemini energy represents interactions and traveling. Okay, or Mars and Sagittarius, you can have a lot of plane accidents, long distance bus accidents, or like Amtrak trail accidents, and things of that nature, because Mars represents confrontation, it represents war. Okay, and it represents the clashing of things, the opposition that creates friction between two things. And that's the nature of Mars. So during the Aries moon, you'll see a lot of activity because everything is taking action during that moon. Okay, you start that new job. If the moon is showing up in the house, Aries moon shows up in the house of relationships, that means that that's a new relationship that's starting or a new marriage. Okay, if it shows up in like the house of religion, which is the ninth house, it could be a time when you give your life to your higher power, or you say, well, I've been saved, or I've been baptized, or I gave my life to God, or I finally started believing in this and believing in that. It's all about the energy of beginnings. Okay, so if it's in a house of friendship, that means that you starting a friendship, you just met somebody and now you're beginning that friendship. So, if it's in the house of money, that means you're going to start your journey with getting your money right. And that's the only thing you're focused on during that moon cycle, is that Aries energy that's giving you the energy to go and get your money. Okay, that's when your energy is at its height to go out and get it, especially when it's in the second house. So that is what Aries energy is like. So when the moon is in Aries, expect a lot of action going on. Okay? Action is action. It's not good or evil. It just is. Okay? But when action is influencing a specific person, now the state of that person, the mental state, physical state, emotional state, and spiritual state of that person will determine whether their actions are good or evil. So, okay, but action is action. Adrenaline is adrenaline. Okay. Starting something is starting something. Okay. But everybody in the world has a different state of mind. Everybody's in a different state, a different mental state, a different emotional state, a different spiritual state. So when Aries energy begins to move through them, whatever state they're in will determine what it is that how they start something. Okay, so that is when you will know, okay, who's good, who's bad. Stay away from negative Aries energy because it's just as confrontational and headstrong and start shit just like the good Aries energy. They start good things. Bad Aries energy, they start bad things. These are people that start fights. These are people that start confrontations. They start arguments. They start all types of things that's just unnecessary and toxic and confrontational and aggressive. Okay? So that is what the moon in Aries is about, and that is what the mood of the atmosphere is going to be. And when the moon is traveling through Taurus, Taurus is a time where things slow down because after all this activity that took place in Aries moon, now it's time to slow down, get stable. Okay, it's time to take into consideration what you started in Aries moon and get stable. Find out, okay, do I have everything I need to continue what I started when the moon was in Aries? That's why Taurus moon represents stability and security. It's about doing what you need to do and going where you need to go to take inventory of everything that you need to be able to continue what you done started when the moon was in Aries. So it could involve going shopping, getting your groceries, paying the bills, um, you know, getting everything you need to keep that job that you just started, or, it's all about getting stable. Taurus energy represents the physical realm, but it also represents our currency. Okay, it represents the five senses. Okay, what we see, what we feel, what we touch, what we taste, what we smell, what we hear, you know, all of that involves our Taurian senses. So everything that involves what we can look at, what we can see, what we can smell, what we can taste, food, shelter, clothing, diamonds, gold, money, cars, all of that is Taurus energy. So when the moon is in Taurus, everybody's um, getting their money right, budgeting, going shopping, getting what they need. Everybody's in a mood to secure themselves. Okay, it's time to get stable. Okay, let's make sure this thing is stable so we can continue to move forward with what we started in Aries. Okay, so Taurus energy is slow and steady. It is a sensual moon. Everybody is not as aggressive as they were when the moon was in Aries. Everybody's getting more stable. They're slowing down and they're doing the speed limit. Okay, when the moon is in Taurus. When the moon goes into Gemini, now it's time to interact. Okay. Now, when the moon gets into Gemini, after you done got stable and you realize, okay, now I'm stable to continue what I started in Aries, now it's time to interact and get more knowledge and information. Get in the mindset of what it's going to take, the mindset that it's going to take to continue moving forward with what you started in Aries. Okay, and then you done got it stable when the moon was in Taurus. So now when the moon gets into Gemini, it's time for you to develop the mindset that's going to be necessary for this thing to be in operation, because the whole universe is a mindset. Okay? Everything that you want to manifest and the life that you want to live is going to be manifested through a specific mindset that you have. It's all about the way you think. How do you process information? You know, how do you learn what it is that you need to learn? Are you a visual learner? Are you a physical learner? Are you a hands-on learner? Okay, what type of language do you speak? How do you get your point across? Okay, is it verbal language? Is it body language? When you're mad, do you like to slam shit? Because we all do. That's a language. You know, that's when somebody's saying, oh, damn, what you mad? What you trying to say something? That's a language. That's Gemini energy. Okay, so even silent treatment can speak louder than words. You know, you're around the house like, oh, well, why are you so silent? You know, it's what's going on? What you got to say? You know, what are you trying to tell me? You know, that's all language. Okay, that is Gemini energy. It represents interactions and it represents travels. So when the moon is in Gemini, expect a lot of travels. Expect a lot of travels to and fro, a lot of phone calls. Okay, a lot of conversations that need to take place, a lot of information that needs to be collected. You want to be in the know. So everybody's in the mood to be in the know when the moon is passing through Gemini. These 2.5 days, we're doing everything we can, making all the contacts we need to make. You know, you done called everybody on your call list, you done made your contacts, you know, went everywhere you needed to go to take care of your business. You know, it deals with mail, messages, phone calls, all of that. Okay, so that is Gemini energy. It is a very social moon. It is a very interactive time and cycle throughout those 2.5 days. Okay, when the moon moves into Cancer, Cancer energy is about home and family. Okay. When the moon is in Cancer, everybody starts to tap into their emotions. Okay. Because the moon rules Cancer energy. Cancer energy is our emotions. That's how we feel. Okay. And the first person to understand how we feel is our mother, the one who gave birth to us. And that's why Cancer energy is attributed to the mother. Okay, because the mother is our shell. Until we learn to develop our own shell, we hide in her bosom, we hide in her presence, we hide in her arms. Okay, she is our shelter. She is, and that's why Cancer energy represents home, shelter, family. It represents the family unit. It represents history. It represents ancestry. Okay, Cancer energy is our vulnerability. Everybody's feeling vulnerable during a Cancer moon. So when you're feeling vulnerable, you got to go to safety. Wherever you feel safe is where you will find people at during a Cancer moon, wherever they feel safe. And everybody has a different moon sign. So the moon period represents your comfort zone. So being that there are 12 zodiac signs, there are 12 different comfort zones for people. Everybody's comfort zone is not at home. But I mean, it is at home, but the sign that their moon is in represents the energy that they feel comfortable in and they feel at home. This is the type of energy that they feel comfortable with around other people. You know, so if someone's moon was in Capricorn, that means they feel comfortable around a structured, solid, cold environment, which is really not emotional and vulnerable. So, what sounds like a comfortable, cold, strict environment? It sounds like the government. Okay, it sounds like places where structure is 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 needed, where structure exists, like courthouses, you know, law enforcement, okay, the government agencies, government jobs, okay. So a person with a moon in Capricorn also, it represents maturity and old age. So a person that has a moon in Capricorn will feel comfortable around much more older and mature people because their energy is a lot more disciplined and controlled. Okay, because it is the opposite of Cancer, which is more vulnerable and in touch with their emotions. Okay, so um when the moon is in Cancer, okay, a lot of people are in their feelings. Okay, after they done started all the shit that they was going to start in Aries, good stuff and bad things, and after they got secure with making sure they can continue what they started in Aries, and then they got all the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of what they're going to be dealing with on what has already got started. They made phone calls, made contacts, okay, spoke their mind on things, got educated on certain things as well, you know. So now it's time to develop an emotional state about everything that took place from Aries to Gemini. So the moon in Cancer means it's time to develop that emotional state. How do you feel about everything that just happened from the Aries moon all the way up until the Gemini moon? Okay, how you feel about everything is going to surface during a Cancer moon, and that's when you will become acquainted with your comfort zone, depending on what it is that you started. Okay, and now you start to build a familial connection with other people that you feel comfortable around. That's not always your family, you know. It depends on whatever it is that you started. That's how you start to link up with other people that you made these connections with in Gemini, and you get comfortable in their presence. You say, you know, okay, I started this job, I got everything I needed to make sure I can continue this job. I made some phone calls to let people know, you know, where I'm at, what I'm doing. You know, I even met some people at the job already. So by the time the moon gets into Cancer, I kind of know who I'm going to be linked up with, who I'm going to kind of be a little closer to than others, because we all have emotions and we all don't feel comfortable around the same kind of people. Okay, so if you want to find out what kind of people you feel comfortable around, then you need to study your moon sign. Okay, because the Cancer moon will definitely bring to the surface everyone's individual moon sign. People are finding their comfort zone, they're going into their shell. Okay, so when the moon is in Cancer, it's a good time for you to be with your family. If your mother's still living, give her a call, talk with her. The energy is everybody's in the mood to have emotional connections. So yeah, make those phone calls, you know, get in touch with your family, call somebody in your family you haven't spoke to, because moon in Cancer is a family energy. Okay, and then call those people that you feel close to, that y'all have a close relationship with. Call those people too. The energy is going to support everything that has to do with Cancer energy. Okay, go visit your family. Okay, go and have those family activities, or stay at home and do some home activities. And, you know, even if it's just laying around reading a book, you know, where you feel comfortable at, you know, that is what the moon in Cancer is about. Now, when the moon gets into Leo, when the moon travels through Leo, it's time to have fun, because that is where you develop an ego. You know, what makes me feel important about everything that took place from Aries to Cancer? You know, now it's time to develop the individual ego. When you start to realize, I want to have fun, and there are things that I like to do that other people don't like to do. So now you start to develop a separation, but it's a territorial type of separation. Because when the mood is in Leo, everybody's in the mood to do what they like to do. They're out to celebrate. You know, it's time to have some fun. It's time to have some recreation. Okay, recreation is a part of nature. Every sign's energy is a part of nature. Okay, that's why Leo energy represents the energy of children, because children naturally do what they like to do. You know, they are territorial at it. This is mines, and you know, this is what I like to do, and this is what I know, and this is what I look like, and this is where I'm going, and this is what I see, and it's all about me. Me. And that is Leo energy. And we all have Leo energy. So when the moon is in Leo, it's time for you to tap into your ego. Okay, it's all about, you'll see a lot of people in the mood for romance. They're in the mood to go out to the movies. They're just in the mood to do something fun. They said, I'm in the mood to let my hair down and go do something fun. They go out to eat, they go out to the movies, they go to the amusement park, they go on vacation, go to casinos and gamble, because Leo energy is about gambling too. They going out to the club, okay, they going to the concert, all types of things. They going to that house party, they're going to that fashion show. This is all Leo energy. So when the moon is traveling through Leo, you'll see a lot of events going on, and you'll see a lot of people in that energy of celebration, the glitz and the glamour, and the royalty and the regalness energy comes out in everybody when the moon is in Leo. So the moon in Leo is also a dramatic moon too. You may see a lot of drama going on too, because every moon has its positives and its negatives. Okay, so during a Leo moon, you may see a lot of stuff on the news, people getting shot, or all types of drama going on in places. You're like, damn, what is going on in the world? What is, that's Leo drama. These things are spotlighted though. These are the highlights of the news. That's Leo energy. And most likely when the moon is in Leo, you'll see a lot of these highlights. This is the highlighted crime that happened this week. It's like the dominant crime that took place on the news that everybody's talking about. That's Leo energy, but that's the dramatic side of Leo energy. So yeah, this is what a moon in Leo is like. Okay, when we're in those 2.5 days of that moon cycle. When the moon goes into Virgo, it's time to clean up. Okay, Virgo energy is about health, wellness, and how everything works in order to function correctly, including the body, including people, places, and things. Okay, because Virgo energy is about the intellect and it's about physical application. Okay, applying it, because see, Mercury rules Virgo, but it also rules Gemini. But it rules the physical application side of Mercury in Virgo, and it rules the informative communication side of Gemini. Virgo applies the directions, Gemini writes the directions, they read the directions, and Virgo follows the directions. It's not that Gemini doesn't follow directions, it's just that Virgo energy is the one that's physical. That is the part of us, because we all have Virgo energy. Okay, that is the part of us that follows directions. Okay, we follow everything we read. Okay, and we try to follow it to the T. We're detail oriented. Go up the street, make a right, go down 3 houses, turn the right into the driveway. It's like detail oriented directions. And Virgo energy is very detail oriented. It's about work as well. So when the moon is in Virgo, it's time for everybody to come in the house after playing so much in Leo. It's time to come in, clean up, get in the bath, clean all the dirt off of you, because we all got dirty when the moon was in Leo, playing around so much. So now the moon is in Virgo. You got to remember, we got jobs. We have a daily routine that we follow. It's time to get back on course with that daily routine. So when the moon is traveling through Virgo, this is when everybody's in the mood to get back to the drawing board and say, okay, I got to clean up now because I got to work tomorrow. I got to go to work, and I got to get back on my diet because I ate a little too much this weekend, and I ate a lot of things I wasn't supposed to be eating when the moon was in Leo, but now I got to flush my system out. So this is what the moon in Virgo is about. It's about cleanliness, and they say cleanliness is next to godliness, but it's just about getting back to the way things work, so we can operate efficiently in the world. We know we got to keep a job. We got to keep everything together. We got health that we have to keep together. So we got to find out, are we eating correctly? Are we doing what we're supposed to do to keep our body in check? This is Virgo energy. So you'll find a lot of people, they're working out, they're at the fitness center, they're at the weight room working out, they're going shopping for health food and diet. They're going to get a medical checkup because it's all about health too. So they're at the doctors, they're making doctor's appointments. It's just everybody's in the mood to be concerned about their health. So they check in with themselves. They say, okay, how am I feeling? How's my health? When was the last time I had a medical checkup? Let me call a doctor and make some appointments. So this is the type of activities that people go through and what they're in the mood to confront when the moon is in Virgo, because the moon represents what we're in the mood for. Okay. So everybody's ready to go to work. They may say, I've been late a lot of times, so I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to start being on time. When the moon is in Virgo, that's when everybody goes back to that fresh energy of when they first got that job. And they say, yeah, I like my job, so I don't want to be late no more because, I don't know what I'm going to do if I lose my job. So now everything's getting back into structure when the moon is in Virgo. Okay, everybody's a bit detail oriented. They're paying a lot of attention to things in their life that does not work. People, places, things. If relationships are not working, they do what they need to do to help it work. If not, they get rid of it. They discard it. They make sure they know how their budget works. If Virgo energy is in the third house, which is Gemini's house, they make sure their mind is working correctly. Make sure they're reading the directions correctly, making sure they're following directions correctly. Okay, if it's in the fourth house of family, it's about making sure the house is clean, making sure is the family straight, are my bills paid, am I taking care of responsibilities in the home, is my home clean, cleanliness and work and maintenance is what Virgo energy is all about. So when the moon is there, everybody's in the mood to pay attention to all of these things. When the moon goes into Libra, that is when everybody is in the mood for someone else. Now, you may already have that someone else in your life. And that may be your wife, your husband, your significant other, your partner, your best friend. It's the one-on-one relationships that you have with the one specific person that you're always with, day in and day out. That's Libra energy. Okay. So when the moon goes into Libra, we're not focused on ourselves. We're focused on the other person. Who are we with? Who do we identify ourselves with? Are we single? Are we married? Are we in a relationship? Are we in a partnership? Is this a business partnership? Is this my party buddy? Is this my sex buddy? Is this my friend? Or is this my enemy? So Libra energy represents all kinds of relationships, not just good ones, but bad ones. It represents our friends and our enemies, the ones that are direct, because you have hidden enemies too, but that's more of Pisces energy. But we're talking about Libra energy. Libra are your direct friends, because we have hidden friends too. We have friends that we don't even know they're our friend. People be like, you're my friend in my head, and you don't even know that person, but they love you, but you also have enemies too, that you don't even know they're your enemy. Okay. But see, Libra energy, these are the friends and enemies. They let that they don't like you, and you let them know, look, I don't like you, or either I like you, you're my friend, or you're my enemy. Stay away from me. That's direct contact. So when the moon is in Libra, everybody's in the mood to confront this energy and where they are at within this energy. Where are my friends? Where are my enemies? So that way I know how to move. Who's my friend? Who's my enemy? Who's on my side and who's against me? And Libra is weighing things out because Libra energy represents the scales. Okay, so it's all about, they have to know who's who. So that way they will know how to move. Because it's all about bringing balance in their lives. Okay, so during a moon in Libra, you'll find people partnering up together. activities for two, dining for two, or a business partnership you may meet, or you may find people getting married. The moon in Libra is a perfect moon cycle to get married under, because that is the energy of marriage. But it's also the perfect moon cycle to get divorced and to cut those ties that you have with people. Libra energy, when the moon is in Libra, that's also about justice too. It's also about the justice system, the court system, the probation system. It's about legal issues. you know so Moon in Libra is also a good time to go to court. If your court date is scheduled under a moon in Libra, more than likely that court date is going to be, it's an ideal court date. Most likely that court um ruling will be fair, because Libra is about fairness. I'm not going to say it's going to be good or it's going to be bad. I'm not saying that because your court date is in the moon of Libra, now you're going to win. No, what's going to happen is everything is going to be fair. There won't be no room for lies, and there won't be no room for falsehood. All of that. Everything is going to be balanced out. It is going to be fair, a fair ruling. Okay. And because the moon in Libra won't accept any other thing. Okay. So it also represents contracts and legal agreements that we sign. It could be like loans, something that we have obligations to, that represents an obligation that we have to fulfill, you know. So that's what that means in Libra as well. So when the moon is in Libra, that is a perfect time to sign contracts, or to get loans, or to just sign up for things, to subscribe. It represents subscriptions, because you're obligated to keep paying on that subscription. Okay, that's an obligation. Okay, so when the moon is in Libra, that's a perfect time to set up these obligations and set up these subscriptions, but it's also the perfect time to unsubscribe. Okay, it is also a perfect time to break that legal contract and break that agreement and say, look, I can't do this no more. I don't want to sign up for this no more. Take my name off the list, or whatever it is, lose my number, however you go about it. When the moon is in Libra, it's a perfect time for you to do that. Okay, it represents how everything connects, whether it's a good connection or a bad connection. When the moon moves into Scorpio, Scorpio energy represents what is created out of two things that happened in Libra. Because remember, Libra represents two, the couples. So when two things come together and merge, it creates Scorpio energy. Scorpio energy represents shared resources, even like in a marriage. What do y'all both share together? You have joint accounts, joint finances, joint resources. Okay, it represents the birth of children, the pregnancy. It represents the whole thing of getting pregnant. That's a Scorpio energy, because now y'all just created a third entity, which is the child. And most likely, when you have sex and impregnate somebody when you conceive during Scorpio season, the child will most likely be born in Leo season. And that's another reason why Leo energy is attributed to children, because a lot of children are born in the summer, because a lot of people are having sex during Scorpio season, because Scorpio is our energy of sex. Okay, it is actually Scorpio energy is the energy of the intensity. It is the energy of the arousal. It is actually the energy of merging. It's the energy of knowing that two things that come together make a third entity. Because Leo energy is also about sex, but it is the playful type of sex in Leo. Leo is the type of sex that people just go around, you fucking around with this individual, you fucking around with that individual, you just playing around with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully you don't catch nothing. That's toxic Leo energy. But Leo energy is about the playful nature of romance and sex. It's not that serious. Now, If they do have a child together, the Leo energy of having a child will most likely be unprepared. You know, that's most likely the type of union where the father's not ready to be a father. The mother wasn't ready to have children. The mother and the father's going through drama, and the child is suffering because of that. So that is when you try to do something scorpionic during a Leo energy. It's not as solid as Scorpio energy, because Scorpio energy actually represents that process. Okay, it represents the process of birth, rebirth, and the coming together of two things that creates that third entity. Okay, so Leo energy more likes to play around with those things. It's more of the creative aspect of Scorpio energy. Okay, so um, also with Scorpio energy, when the moon is in Scorpio, not only will you see a lot of people ready to have sex, but that's because everybody is feeling, they're in their deep feelings, the type of feelings that come to the surface. It's not like Cancer. Cancer is a water sign too, and it represents our emotions. But Cancer emotions is different from Scorpio emotions. Cancer emotions are the emotions that are triggered by family, the people that are closest to you, the people that you feel comfortable with. It's not a sexual energy like Scorpio. Scorpio represents the intensity of emotions that actually arouse you, you know, to be able to collaborate with this person, whether it's physically, mentally, sexually, or whatever. They say, look, I fucks with this person. I love talking to this individual. That's a Scorpio that is a Scorpio phenomenon. You know, I love being around this individual. I want to have sex with this individual. I want to merge with this individual in some form of fashion. I want to give this individual money when they need it. I want to share whatever it is they need. I'm gonna do it for them. You know, that's a Scorpio energy, because see, that is coming from an emotion of intensity. You know, where this intensity has to have a release. You know, just like when you get aroused, you know, sexually, when your sexual organs get aroused, it's coming from an intensity of emotion that's building up, where you want to merge with this other entity, so that way you can develop a release. What will allow me to have a release? And this is why it represents the sharing of things. The more I can merge with this individual, the more I can experience that release. If it's a physical merging, then it will be sex. And we all know what that release is when it comes to sex. But Scorpio energy is not limited to physical sexual merging, because sexual energy is not just about sex. The entire creative life force that created existence is a sexual experience. Like they say, if the Big Bang is a sexual experience. The Big Bang, if you use your imagination, you will know what the Big Bang is. You know, that's like the universe, everything just bust into existence, you know, and that's still happening. That is how babies are created, through the Big Bang. Okay, when the man is in a woman and he gets ready to bust, that is the Big Bang. That is creation. It happens through a Big Bang. Okay, so it's not just about sex, though. It is the entire creative process that Scorpio energy is about. The merging on all levels: sexual, financial, physical, this. And that's why it also represents death, because some people, that's how they let loose. They said, I got to kill this individual, because the intensity that arouses is not always good. There can be jealousy that arouses. You know, they say there's something that this person does to me that I don't like. And if you don't address it, it can lead to violence, like death. It can create feelings of, I want to see this person dead, you know, and that is the intensity of Scorpio energy, you know, and it also rules darkness. It rules the darkness of how energy works, because energy without control If you don't know how to control power, which is what Scorpio is all about, there are things that this power can do that they have names for, such as magic, sorcery, voodoo, all of these types of spiritual, energetic arts and crafts, because energy is the manifester of all things. And Scorpio is about learning how to control these energies. Okay, so when you don't know how to control these energies the correct way, it will manifest the wrong things. Okay, it will manifest what it's supposed to manifest, but it may not come out the way you think it should, because energy can manifest someone's death or someone's downfall. Okay, and then they will name that. They say, well, damn, it's funny how y'all have this argument one day, an exchange of energies, and there was such a toxic buildup within it. And then it's funny how a few days later, this person got into an accident and died. What happened? So they don't know how that happened, but it had a lot to do with that energy that was through that toxic exchange, and that energy was in them. It was intense and it needed a release. And because it was a toxic energy, it led to a toxic manifestation of death. So they labeled that type of manifestation, that was black magic, that was voodoo. This person cursed you, or this person that. But in reality, that is a Scorpio experience. That is a Scorpio phenomenon when people don't understand how energy works. Okay, how two things that come together can create a third entity. Okay, that's why witches are all about bringing the elements together. They know how to mix things, energies together to create a third entity that will manifest through you, whether it's for good or evil. Okay, and that happens on all levels: mentally, physically, sexually, emotionally, spiritually. Sex can also be a ritualistic cursing of somebody. You can literally bless somebody through sex, and you can curse them through sex, depending on what type of sex you are having. Okay, so when the moon is in Scorpio, this is a very intense moon. And it's the type of moon that's so intense that not everybody knows how to embrace that intensity. So you will see a lot of mysterious things happen that you can't seem to explain. And that's another aspect of Scorpio energy, the mystery, until they can make sense of it. They say, how did this happen to this individual? They just we was talking one day, and the next thing you know, they was just poof, gone. And we don't know what happened. That is a Scorpio phenomenon. Okay, you have to make sense of the energy that made that happen. Okay, so you will see a lot of mystery and intrigue. Well, more so mystery. Intrigue is when the moon is in Pisces. We're going to get to that. But mystery, the moon is traveling through Scorpio. Expect everybody's in the mood to unravel mysteries. Everybody's in a deep mood. That deep mood can lead people to have sex. They said, I'm feeling some type of way. Some people are feeling like, damn, I need to have sex with somebody. I need to do this. I need to go kill somebody. Or, I need to, it's deep. It's very intense. And sometimes it's hard for people to harness that, but we all have Scorpio energies. When the moon moves into Sagittarius, everybody's in the mood to make sense out of everything that just went on from Aries all the way up to Scorpio in our lives. Sagittarius energy is like, okay, we got to make this make sense. Okay, because clearly all of this stuff has turned me into a whole nother being that has a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Everything I've been through from Aries energy all the way up to Scorpio energy has literally transformed me, because Scorpio energy is also about transformation. Okay, but when the moon moves into Sagittarius, now it's time to make sense out of that transformation. And that is where the experience comes in at. Because Sagittarius energy is the opposite of Gemini energy. Gemini is about information and learning and education. Sagittarius is about what you learn from your own experience, the things that you went through in life, What has life taught you, raw and uncut, even when nobody else was around? What have you learned about what you've been through? A lot of us know, where I know one thing: I'm not going to let people like this in my circle ever again. And I've learned another thing, and that this is all a Sagittarius experience. And when the moon is in Sagittarius, yeah, it's an optimistic moon. Everybody's feeling optimistic because everybody wants to explore. You know, they said, I want to explore. I want to build up my experience. So they go and explore things on purpose to learn their relationship with this experience. Okay, because they want to build their experience. You know, I want to see what it feels like to do this. I want to see what it feels like to go here. I want to see what I learn if I do this. And people may say, with Gemini energy, which is the opposite, they may say, oh no, don't do this, because let me tell you what happens. That Sagittarius don't want to hear that, because they figure, no, I want to have my own experience of what this will do to me. So let me have my experience. I understand what you're saying, and I understand what you know about it. That's just like, for example, you know, for people who may smoke or drink, we always hear, oh, smoking is bad for you. We know that. Okay, that's Gemini energy. We know that. That's not why we're smoking. You know, obviously, that's not enough to get me to stop smoking. Okay, that means the reason why I'm smoking is greater than me knowing that smoking can kill me. But see, Sagittarius, we are going to explore and get down to the bottom of why we really smoke. Because obviously, the fact that cigarettes can kill us is not going to stop us. So it must be something deeper that we need to tap into, so we'll be able to put these cigarettes down. That is Sagittarius energy. It's all about higher knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. The knowledge that comes from other realms. Experience is the best teacher. Okay? And our experience is what formulates our belief in what we call God. Everybody has a higher power, and everybody's higher power is different because everybody's experience is different. Everybody's experience is not the same. So everybody's Sagittarius energy is the energy in them that formulates their higher power. Because I've been through this and I've learned this, this is what I understand about God. This is what I understand about what we all call God. Everybody has a unique understanding of God, and it's built up in Sagittarius energy. So when the moon is in Sagittarius, this is what you will see a lot of. You know, you will see a lot of travels because it represents traveling, but it represents long distance travel, not the short travels from here to the grocery store or from here to Joey's house around the corner. Okay, this is long distance travel, like out of the country or across the country. This is like traveling on a plane or traveling on a Greyhound bus or traveling on an Amtrak train travel, not the regular city train, the train that goes across the country type of travel. You know, but this is also mental travel. How far you go in your mind, how far you can think. You know, this is also emotional travel too. You know, this is also that's why people experience all types of things that build up their Sagittarius energy. You know, they may do things. They say, well, I want to see what it's like to drink this or to smoke this. And then they go on this journey within their spirit. And they say, wow, I smoked this thing and it took me to a whole nother world, you know, but I learned a lot of shit while I was there, you know. And then when I came back to reality, I wasn't high no more, but I did learn a lot of things that I can apply to my sober life. That is a Sagittarius experience. Okay, so when the moon moves into, oh, and also while the moon is in Sagittarius, everybody's in the mood to pay attention to lessons that they need to learn from what they've already been through. You know, they're at the fork in the road that's saying, okay, what has everything that I just went through taught me? You know, and how do I understand where I really am at within myself? What are my truths? What do I know is true for me? Even if other people didn't have that experience and it's not true to them, what is actually true to me? That is how you understand Sagittarius energy. Okay, and this is what everybody's in the mood for during the moon in Sagittarius. When the moon moves into Capricorn, after we done learned our truths and we have something to work with now, we have an idea on where we're at in our spirit. We have some type of firm foundation and experience. Now it's time to go out into the world with this experience and succeed. Because now we feel mature. Now we can reach our goals because now we're cultured. We feel mature. We feel cultured. We feel experienced. You know, we have a sense of a higher power that's with us. So now we can begin to obey the power that it takes for us to move up the ladder of success, which is what the moon in Capricorn is all about. When the moon goes into Capricorn, everybody is in the mood to focus on their goals. It's a serious moon. Nobody's playing. You won't find a lot of people playing like Leo Moon. You know, all that playing and shit is over. Moon in Capricorn is not playing. Okay, they're serious. They're about business. It's time to get down to business because I got business to take care of. Okay, it could be the purpose that you finally realize that you have when the moon was in Sagittarius. They said, I learned what my purpose was because I took time out with myself and I did some research and learned some higher knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, you know, did some meditation or whatever, and now I finally know what my purpose is. Okay, so now when the moon is in Capricorn, they start to draw lines. Capricorn energy is about drawing lines, boundaries that people cannot cross that line. You say, I will not cross this line because I have goals that I need to reach. When the moon is in Capricorn, everybody's in the mood to become acquainted with their ambitions, okay, their discipline. You know, it is an earth moon, just like Virgo. When it's time to clean up, you know, come in the house, clean up, get back to work. Capricorn energy is about, okay, I'm already at work. It's time to succeed at work because I'm not going to work and stay in the same place. I got to move up the ladder while I'm working. I'm working to climb up the ladder to a place of authority. You know, even if it's authority over myself, authority to me is reaching my goals. So that is Capricorn energy. When the moon is in Capricorn, everybody is in the mood to reach their goals and they are serious about where they're going in life. Now, Saturn, okay, which is what religion calls Satan, okay, but it's really the planet Saturn that's responsible for all of the punishments and the cold-hearted things that seem to happen to us from God. We feel like, well, damn, God, why would you let this happen to me? Or why would you? It's not. It's the planet Saturn. See, when you work with Saturn, you will understand why things happen. You will understand that everything has laws and order. We're not as free as we think we are. Just like playing cards. When you're playing cards and somebody hands you a deck of cards and you have your hand, you're looking at your hand, and you feel like, well, I could play whatever card I want to play. Yeah, that's true, but there's also an object to the game. So you can't just throw out any card and expect to win. You got to throw out the card that's going to line up with the object because the object is for you to win. And winning, you're not going to win just throwing out whatever you want. Don't work like that. So that's what Moon and Capricorn energy is about. Knowing that, okay, I know I can do what I want to do, but just because I can do what I want to do doesn't mean that that's the right thing for me to do. So I'm not going to throw this card out. I'm going to pay attention to the board and I'm going to throw the card out that's going to keep me moving forward. Okay? That is what Capricorn energy is about. And these are the moves that people are making when the moon is in Capricorn because people are serious. It's about moving forward up the ladder and maturing. You know, the older you get, the more mature you become. With some people, their maturity comes with knowledge. The more they learn, the more mature they know how to become. but it just represents the aging cycle and the cycle of time. Things take time. Not everything is going to happen overnight. Not everything is going to happen in a month. Not everything is going to happen in a year. Not everything is going to happen in 10 years. Certain things take time to develop. Okay. And Capricorn energy is the energy of that development and the time that it takes for things to develop, you know. So when the moon is in Capricorn, everybody is in the mood to embrace the developmental process of success. And also, it is about people that have arrived at their goals, which represents fame. When you arrive at your height of success, you are tapped into the energy of fame. Capricorn energy is the energy of fame. It represents status. They have a energy that puts them in a specific light of authority. It's not the light that Leo has. It's a different type of light. It is the light of authority, okay, that Capricorn has. It is the light of respect, okay? Leo is not always as big on respect as Capricorn is because Leo plays a lot, but Leo is just as ambitious as Capricorn is. Leo is just not as mature as Capricorn. Okay? So Leo can succeed at entertainment type things. You know what I'm saying? And it's a thing with them where they just like attention, like a child. You give the child a round of applause and you make them feel good about their talents, gifts, and abilities, and Leo is straight. Capricorn, however, they are doing what they do. They're famous for respect. They're like, look, you're going to put some respect on my name. You're not just going to clap for me and send me back to my room like I'm Leo. No, you're going to put some respect on my name. And a lot of times Capricorn wants to be in authority, and this is where the energy of intimidation comes from. It comes from Saturn. The energy of envy, that comes from Saturn, because people are naturally intimidated by someone who has the audacity to feel like everybody needs. We understand respect, but as far as authority and rulership and everybody's under your authority and this and that, so everybody's not going to allow Capricorn to have authority over them. They say they're not the law in my life. I respect what you do, this and that. And the main thing is Capricorn people want people to take them serious. That's really where it comes from. We all want that to a degree, but with Capricorn, they are serious about that because they feel inadequate without their success. They feel inadequate. So they have this thorn in their flesh that just keeps them moving forward up that ladder because they have self-esteem issues, because Saturn makes them work hard for what they want. So that is where this issue comes from. It seems like life is always a struggle with Capricorn energy. So when the moon is in Capricorn, whatever you are struggling with will come to the surface. Everybody's in the mood to deal with their struggles. They say, look, I understand that it's going to take some time for me to get this together in my life. And it's going to take some time for me to reach this goal. But I can still plan, and I'm still going to make sure I keep everything organized and take it one step at a time. So the moon in Capricorn is where everybody's in the mood to do that and go along with the process. Patience is Capricorn energy, and perseverance. When the moon is in Aquarius, and once we went through Capricorn's cycle of being serious and reaching our goals, we start to realize, okay, we are an individual. There's a world full of everybody that is not like us. Okay, Aquarius energy, when the moon is in Aquarius, we become acquainted with strangers. Anything that is not like us is strange to us, but it's still human. So we got to get to know this stranger so we can realize we realize the world is bigger than what we thought, and the human spectrum of experience is bigger than what we thought. because there are many different types of humans. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own unique preferences, their own unique walk of life, their own unique belief system, their own unique currency, their own unique mindset, their own unique sense of family, their own unique pleasures, all of that. They even their own unique success and the definition of success. So when we become acquainted with people's individuality and we realize, okay, they don't have the same morals as me, but they do have morals, right? Because that's what Aquarius energy is about. That is the whole point. I don't have to be like you to have morals or to have respect. I know how to be who I am and still get my respect. I don't have to be, all this disciplined person that does what everybody tells me to do and to move to the top. I'm going to do what the hell I want to do. And people are going to put respect on my name. That is what Aquarius is about. They're not even about Leo attention. They don't need attention or a round of applause. It's like they do what they want to do because Aquarius is about freedom. And when the moon is in Aquarius, people break free. They say, I can do what I want to do. I'm successful because they've been through that Capricorn stage. They said, I'm successful at who I am, and what I want and all of that. And I'm successful at knowing how to get my respect, But the thing is, I'm going to do what the hell I want to do. I'm not going to let nobody put me on no pedestal and hold me accountable for their standards. Because I'm going to always fuck up in everybody else's book because I'm not them. I'm me. And in my book, everything that I do is right for me. That is Aquarius energy. And when the moon moves into Aquarius, everybody gets in touch with their Aquarian energy. Everybody's in the mood to understand the difference between them and other people. Okay? That's why Aquarius energy rules all walks of life. It rules humanity, period. All walks of life, all religions. It rules the common ground. After all of these unique things that make us different from each other, what are the common denominators of us, of this circle, of that circle, of this group, of that group? That is what goes on when the moon is in Aquarius. Everybody's linking up with their tribe. They're in the mood to go in the world and find out, who is my tribe? Who are my real friends? Who are the people that know what I know or do what I do or see what I see? That is Aquarian energy. It's about friendship, group activities, sororities, fraternities, organizations, gangs, teams. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay? So also during an Aquarius moon, you may see a lot of gang activity and rebellious activity. Okay? In that it's different from the Leo dramatic activity and the highlights of the news that you'll see go on. Okay, Aquarian activity is rebellion on a grand scale, such as racism, and things that cater to these structures. That is the Aquarian type of rebellion. It's on a higher scale. It's not on a selfish scale like Leo. Leo energy will create a scene to bring attention to itself. Aquarius energy is about a group of people, an organization. It is about what people are standing up for, and how they go about getting their respect or getting their freedom, such as, for example, gay rights. You have gay rights and you have the LGBTQ, which is also a community because Aquarius energy is about community. So using the LGBTQ community, that is a community of all kinds of people, but they have one thing in common. They're either L, G, B, T, or Q or all, and they have morals that they stand up for to protect their community. Okay, that is the type of and they'll do anything to protect that community. But to us, it may seem like, well, damn, these people are very violent. No, it's not that. They're protecting their community and they're protecting their rights. They're protecting what they stand up for because they are fighting to be free. They want to be themselves. They don't want to be like everybody else. They don't care what people think is right or wrong. They don't give a fuck about who you think they need to be having sex with or whatever they do with their sexual organs, because we all shouldn't care about that. Okay, but a lot of us do. But when you're dealing with Aquarius energy, they don't. And they'll do whatever they need to do to make you understand that. Okay, and that is where the rebellion comes in at. And these riots and the destruction of communities, that everybody gets together and does it together. They destroy the community, or they riot, or they march. This is all an Aquarian experience. So when the moon is in Aquarius, you will see a lot of these activities that involve groups, gangs, and races of people. You know, a large aspect of humanity, because Aquarian, the point of Aquarian energy in all of us is to learn how to love one another unconditionally, not territorial like Leo, where, oh, I'll love you if you do what I tell you to do. No, you either love me or you don't. That is Aquarius energy. Now, when the moon moves into Pisces, it's time to relax. It's time to rest. It's time to fall back. It's time for some serenity. After you done gathered up the courage to change what you can in Scorpio, and then you accepted what you could not change because you learned those lessons in Sagittarius. Now you develop the wisdom to understand the difference, which gives you that strength to move up the ladder in Capricorn, which introduces you to all these differences in Aquarius. So now that you're in Pisces, you realize that sometimes that difference is the fact that there are things that will change and there are things that we can't change, because these things that we can't change are designed to change us, because we're still, as humans, on the evolutionary path back to the creator, back to the source. So there are lessons that we're here to learn. Okay, so like, for example, if you want to teach, if somebody's purpose is to be strong in this life, let's say the God of your imagination, we're just going to use God. I don't know what everybody's belief is, but the most popular belief of a higher power is God. So I'm going to use that. Let's say God created you to be one of the strongest people in your family. Now, when you look back at your life, when God sent you, he'd be like, hold up, if you created me to be the strongest person, why did you allow me to go through all of these weak situations, that I had to overcome? Because that is the purpose of becoming strong. You would not know how strong God made you to be if he did not put you in that weak situation. That is what it means to be strong. Okay, now let's say God created you to be wealthy and rich, but yet you was born poor, and you tell God, well, hold up, if I'm supposed to be rich, why was I born poor? I don't get it, but that's what your life is going to be about, learning how to get it. And then you'll realize, when you get to that Capricorn cycle, you'll start to realize, you know what? I'm glad that I came from nothing, because it taught me everything that I know today, and it helped me achieve everything that I've achieved, So at the end of the day, you realize God really did create you to be rich and wealthy. You just didn't understand what builds up a rich and wealthy individual. Struggle, suffering. If God created you to be a healer, you may be born into all types of sicknesses, because you are here to learn how to be a healer. You are a healer. So you will heal, but you have to have something to heal. So that's why you are born in sick situations, because you have the gift of being able to straighten out a sick situation, what's crooked, because you are a healer. That is what you bring to humanity, the power to heal. Okay, so that is how you build character. Okay, that is how Pisces energy works. We don't always understand it. It's not always clear to us, what's really going on, because it's so chaotic. It comes from the depths. It comes from the source of our being. Okay. And when the moon moves into Pisces, it's time to really reflect. Don't do too much activity, because the moon will not support that. It will not give you the energy for a lot of activity when the moon is in Pisces, because this is the end of a cycle. So this is a time to rest and reflect, okay, and to dream. Pay attention to your dreams when the moon is in Pisces. Okay, this is a time for compassion, forgiveness, especially after you went through that Capricorn and Aquarius cycle, and you realize, wow, there really are people out here that are a little bit of all types of things, and I'm really not, all that I thought I was. But then you realize Aquarius energy also teaches you you don't have to be all that. Just be who you are. And you'll realize that's what everybody else is doing. See, Aquarius already understands that. Okay, so in Pisces, it's time to forgive what you did not understand at first. So when the moon goes into Pisces, it's time for compassion. It's time for forgiveness. So the moon in Pisces might confront you with situations, people, places, and things that may not represent what you're like. Well, why do, if I'm supposed to forgive and let go, why did this happen to me, or why did you let this person do this to me? Why did you, why was I put in this situation? Because it's about forgiveness and letting go of what you cannot change. That is serenity. You can't change the past. You can't change what happened to you in a powerless situation. A lot of powerless situations are like molestation when you were a kid, or somebody raped you in your family as a child. Or you got abused, or you got neglected, or just you were adopted, or somehow you went through a situation that you had no power to protect yourself from. That is Pisces energy. So where does our protection come from? What is the purpose of why this happened to me? That happened to you because we all have Pisces energy. That builds up your Pisces energy, okay, of forgiveness and compassion, and you learn a lot about the human condition in Pisces energy, okay, because without the forgiveness and compassion and letting go, all of what went on with you and all of these emotions that's built up in you and this confusion is going to lead you to want to escape reality. And that is why Pisces energy also is about drugs and alcohol. It is about escape routes. Escape routes, we escape when we don't want to understand or process things. We escape from it. You're like, look, I don't even want to face this shit. Let me go get high. Let me go get drunk. Let me just go and go to my own world where I can live like this problem don't even exist, or this problem never even happened. But that is not the answer. That's not serenity. You're running from yourself. Serenity is when you accept that this happened. It's real. you know so all you can do is change what you can and understand the difference. Look what it has turned you into when you realize you couldn't change that situation. A lot of people, it has turned them into monsters. And Pisces energy rules the realm of the imagination, all the gargoyles and the monsters and the demons in us, and it also rules the angels in us as well, and the enlightened souls and the mystics. That is all Pisces energy. But the difference between the mystic and the demon is serenity. The demon cannot accept what the mystic has learned to accept. And that's why the demon chose the wicked. They chose to be mad. They're mad at what they call God. I'm mad at life, at the way it all had to be. I'm mad that the fact that this had to happen to me. I'm mad that so-and-so did this to me. So demons are rooted in that madness. They're not rooted in serenity. This is why they're so wicked and always mean-spirited, and always looking on the dark side of life and toxic. Okay? But the mystic and the angel, they are rooted in serenity. Because the demon and the angel are both human. They're both having a human experience. So they're both the same in in this human life. They just operate from two different points of creation, two different points of manifestation, okay? Two different points of spirit, okay? Two different points of uh, functioning. So the mystic understands forgiveness, and it has forgiven itself and other people. The demon hasn't. That's why it's still mean and vindictive and hateful. But the mystic did. That's why it's forgiving, loving, and compassionate. And they let things go that they could not change. You say, look, you can't change it, just let it go. But the reason why it's so hateful is because you hold on to things that you should have been let go. Okay? So this is what Pisces energy is about. So when the moon is in Pisces, your dream life will come to the surface. Your imagination will come to the surface. And there's some straightening out of things that you need in your imagination. Because when you go inside of that dark realm, you will see demons and you will see angels. You will see your shadows. So moon in Pisces is a perfect time to do shadow work. Get by yourself. Don't be around a lot of people when the moon is in Pisces. Get by yourself and do your shadow work. Work on your mental psyche, your emotional psyche. You're working on the emotional psyche is like working on a part of you that understands, why do I feel like this about something that I know is wrong, or something that I do, but that I know is not the right thing to do, but for some reason I feel comfortable like this. That is an emotional psychic experience that you're having. It affects your emotional psyche. Something has psyched you out and made you believe that this was like for example, men that want to be women. You have men that want to be women, and you have women that want to be men, because that's how they feel comfortable. Some men feel comfortable as a woman, and they figure, well, this is just who I am. But no, it's not. You've been psyched out. That is a Pisces experience. You're trying to make that an Aquarian experience, but it's not. It's a Pisces experience, because you're not supposed to be a woman. You're supposed to be yourself, yeah, but you're a man. You're not supposed to be a woman. You're a woman. You're not supposed to be a man. So you can't say the fact that I'm a woman that wants to be a man, that I'm just being myself. No, that's something that's psyching you out. That's a shadow in you that's being itself. That's not you. So that's a Pisces experience. The reason why people do what they do is in darkness. They got to go into that closet of darkness within themselves and confront those shadows that are making them operate from these chaotic, confused points of existence that's altering their entire outlook and emotionalism and mental. That's why it rules mental issues. That's why Pisces energy rules jails. It rules the things that people do, the spirits that control people to do the things that they do that land them in jail and mental health asylums. Places of incarceration where they need healing. They said, you're going to be here until you heal, because you are controlled by something that's causing you to do things that you're not aware of, because Pisces energy represents everything that we're not aware of. Sometimes other people can be aware of it, but we're not, because it rules our subconscious. Okay? So when the moon is in Pisces, you'll see a lot of things will be quiet. People will be restful, but not everybody's going to be at peace. Some people are by themselves because they're disturbed. Okay? So never let silence fool you. Like, okay, the coast is clear, everything is good. No, don't think because everything is silent that everything is peaceful and everybody's fine. You know, it's just that people are dealing with their own darkness. Okay, and there's a lot of things that they don't want to come out about. So they keep to themselves. But you'll see how disturbed they are when you disturb them. Okay, so that completes the moon cycle tutorial.